The ACLU continues to give ongoing proof that it is no longer a civil rights or a civil liberties organization. It's a misnomer. The American Civil Liberties Union, is this some kind of a joke? Well, in the past, it really wasn't a joke. I remember thinking back to my Dartmouth days, there were times when the college administration would do things to us and we would go running to the ACLU. Now, we did not have a high degree of confidence that the ACLU would come and back us. And we knew that if they did back us, they would say things like, oh, well, these are right-wing extremists, but you know what, even right-wing extremists have the right to free speech. But despite the hemming and hawing, we had this belief that the ACLU, being a civil liberties organization, would feel some moral pressure to take our side because we were being what? Well, deprived of our civil liberties. And the ACLU on these issues, on civil liberties issues, was by and large pretty sound. In fact, the ACLU took a quite extreme position defending free speech when they defended the Nazis marching in Skokie, famous case. And the ACLU has now flipped. They've gone from being pro-free speech to being anti-free speech. They've gone from being pro-free assembly to being anti-free assembly. Essentially, one by one, they're giving up on all of our civil liberties. And they're emerging as nothing more than a sort of left-wing organization that will go with the left-wing orthodoxy of the day. Now, the latest proof of this comes in the issue of curricular transparency. When you're dealing with public schools, let's remember these are instruments of the state. The ACLU has long had the position that schools should be transparent. They should disclose what they are doing, and that bureaucrats and school boards do not get to hide what they are doing from parents or from the public. If you're a little surprised that this has been the ACLU's position, that's because you're so familiar with the current ACLU, which no longer holds to any principle at all. So right now what's going on is about a dozen state legislatures are considering laws that basically demand that curriculums be posted online. This is part of the transparency movement. Parents have a right to know. But the ACLU wants to protect race and gender indoctrination. They want to protect transgender indoctrination. And so they have, the recent tweet says it all. Curriculum transparency bills are just thinly veiled attempts at chilling teachers and students from learning and talking about race and gender in schools. Now, the idea here that there's some kind of open conversation going on in schools is laughable. First of all, students have no say in the public school classroom. They are completely at the mercy of teachers and administrators and bureaucrats. So the idea that students have free speech is absurd. But why don't parents, who, after all, are through their taxes paying for the public school system and public schools are accountable to the public, why shouldn't parents know what's going on? Well, the ACLU says that they shouldn't, and they are disguising their opposition to transparency by saying that they're going to protect the free speech of the teachers. Now, interestingly, the ACLU in the past, here's the ACLU of Kentucky. Kentucky several years ago was establishing a program for Bible literacy. The idea was that school districts, you should know about the Bible. We're not teaching the Bible, but we're teaching about the Bible. And the ACLU was, you can't do this. We need transparency. We need to know what each of these districts are doing. Parents need to know. The community needs to know. So the ACLU, this is the kind of classic ACLU. And I suppose part of the reason it was easy for the ACLU to do that is because they were opposing Bible literacy. It's harder for the ACLU to stand on principle when we're talking about race and gender indoctrination. And sure enough, the ACLU has decided not to stand on principle, essentially to surrender the civil liberties position and to become nothing more than a kind of left-wing hatchet organization. If you give money to the ACLU, I hope there's no one who listens to this podcast who does, but if you do, stop.